Read the ball, darling. Category is informative speech. Now, when I say ball, I'm referring to ballroom culture. Now, we know a lot of us here have heard of terms such as, so what's the tea? She's so shady. Or seen a multitude of people doing this. Ironically, all these things come from ballroom culture. Ballroom culture is something I've always respected and admired as a queer individual, and it's something very prevalent in today's society. Yet, most people are unaware of its origins, voguing, and impacts on today's society. Now, I know a lot of us here have significant backgrounds and traditions that we have lived by for generations. Similarly, the origins of ballroom culture are unique, and our part what makes it so important. Ballroom culture comes from the Harlem drag scene, which comes from the Harlem Renaissance in the 1920s. In a video posted by Mike on YouTube, posted on May 4, 2016, titled, "Ballroom Culture is about so much more than voguing," it says, Black and Latino performers eventually broke off to make their own scene after feeling excluded by white members. Much of ballroom culture today was founded upon by Black and Latin American queer individuals who came from disowned families. In the 70s and 80s, these individuals then began to form their own family-like relationships or groups known as houses, with each house having a leader known as the mother or father of the house. These houses would also have names, usually after high fashion brands or models, such as House of Evangelista, House of Balenciaga, or House of Lanvin. And a lot of these houses still exist today. To express their house pride and culture, competition-like settings were created to see who the superior house was at the time. These competitions were known as balls. Within these balls, houses would walk or compete in these balls and be judged on a multitude of things like voguing skills, costumes, or attitude. And within these balls were also different categories for houses to walk in, such as beginner's runway, serving face, or serving body. And although categories did differ from time to time in these balls, there was always one aspect that remained the same: vogue. Vogue is a dance style created from these balls, used to imitate the poses and the attitudes of models in a photo shoot. Vogue is also described as an expression of one's own story through performance and attitude. According to a New York Times article titled "Celebrating the Modern Ballroom Scene," Vogue instructor Omaria Ricci said, "There's a lot of moving parts to be mastered. There's no rehearsed choreography in Vogue." This explains that Vogue is heavily based on improv dancing and requires one to fully understand its elements in order to perform well. Now, when it comes to winning a ball and performing well, one must showcase these 5 elements, each one representing a different part of storytelling. Number 1, hands. The hands represent the telling of the story. Number 2, catwalk. The catwalk represents the turning of the pages. Number 3, duck walk, which represents the going from phrase to phrase. Number 4, floor performance, representing the ending of the sentence. And finally, number 5, spins and dips, representing the periods and the ends of stories. Vogue, along with ballroom, has evolved over the years and has been around for 30 to 40 years. Ballroom culture has made such a huge impact on today's society and pop culture, and major influences in today's media. In an article by Vice.com by Taylor Hosking titled, "How Today's Ballroom Leaders Are Finding a History Appropriation," it says, today, as ballroom is becoming more visible than ever before, members of its community are aiming to make this moment count in a more lasting way. Shows like Pose and Legendary indulge into the history of ballroom culture, but not just the history, but the personal lives involved in it. I know documentaries like Paris is Burning take on the realities of how ballroom families come up in America, especially as queer people of color. And not only that, certain jargons and phrases we use in pop culture today, like tea, shade, or reading, come from ballroom. And through these different avenues, ballroom culture has been able to make such a huge difference in today's society. And even though it's been around for decades, ballroom has been able to make huge impacts, but yet still most people are unaware of its origins and the impacts that it's made in society. But with that being said, category is closed, and I will see you after the function, darling.